We are continuing the breaking news coverage of these newly leaked secret tapes from leader Kevin McCarthy. These are the audio recordings that are ricocheting across Washington. The New York Times obtained them, and they reveal how Leader McCarthy, the top Republican in the House, was worrying that what his far-right colleagues were saying and doing could literally incite violence after the riot and insurrection. This has been a big story, but if you are just catching up with it as it's been breaking, here's the first tape. This is from January 10th.
The other thing that we have to do is these members on either whatever position you are, calling out other members, that stuff's got to stop. Tension is too high. The country is too crazy. I do not want to look back and think we caused something or we missed something and someone got hurt. I don't want to play politics with any of that.
That is what sounds like a seriously concerned leader who's just seen the insurrection that Trump led. This was back during that time that Kevin McCarthy has been lying about and hiding that he was privately, secretly, according to now this newer evidence, really concerned that Donald Trump had caused the insurrection and that worse things could happen. And as you heard just there, the people in his caucus could potentially stoke what was that tense period. Of course, Biden had not come into power yet. The transition of power had not occurred yet. There was all of that concern about what would happen over the next 10 days. And that's what he was worried about, what his own side, his own members were doing. Then this other audio, you hear Republican leadership calling out Matt Gaetz, Mo Brooks, and Gohmert for their rhetoric, worried, again, in this tense period, that there could be more death, more insurrection-type activity, more violence.
I just got something sent now about Newsmax, something Matt Gaetz said, where he's calling people's names out, saying an anti-Trump in this type of atmosphere. And some of the other places, this is serious stuff people are doing that has to stop.
Mo and Louis' comments, too, a lot of members have said some real concerning things. It's potentially illegal what he's doing.
He's putting people in jeopardy, and he doesn't need to be doing this. We saw what people would do in the Capitol, and these people came prepared with rope, with everything else.
Prepared with rope to assassinate and hang the vice president, among others. You can hear the concern on the tape. And by the way, it also gives lie and hypocrisy to what McCarthy and others have said in public about cancel culture, about the concerns about speech, which, of course, free speech that doesn't involve violence is protected. But here they are privately saying the obvious, that if you incite violence, if you bring rope, if you break the law, if you storm the Capitol, well, that's not speech anymore. And they were concerned it was going to get worse. I'm joined now by former U.S. Attorney, Prosecutor Joyce Vance, and David Frum, a veteran of conservative politics in a Republican White House, writer with The Atlantic. He was a special assistant to George W. Bush. Welcome to you both. Before we get to the law, I go to you on the entire context, David. What you hear there in that tense period sounds like people who were concerned more about violence than so-called cancel culture or other political claims of the right. It seems like they were really worried. What do you see as the significance in what's revealed on these tapes?
Well, it just travels us back in time to where we were in January after this terrible incident. You'll remember during the second impeachment trial, when this matter went to the Senate, people like Mitch McConnell didn't say this was fine, nothing doing. They came up with a series of technical reasons. There hadn't been enough process. President Trump was leaving office soon anyway. But they went on the record about how dreadful what happened was and how Donald Trump was to blame. McConnell said that on the floor of the Senate. McCarthy spoke less forcefully, but also clearly Donald Trump was to blame for what happened here. He was morally and practically responsible. That was McConnell's phrase. And what we have seen is a Republican leadership that knows the truth, being pushed away from it. Now, I don't know whether it's better or worse. It's a hard question that they know the truth and don't say it, or if they are so deluded and crazy and vicious and anti-constitutional that they don't know. But what we do see, and this is the last piece of context, is that many people are coming to the Congress in 2022, if the polls are right, who are not at the McConnell and McCarthy position, who sincerely believe that Donald Trump was justified in his attempts to overturn the election, first by fraud and then by force.
Mm-hmm. And Joyce, we heard Scalise there who knows well about the risk of violence and has lived that, we hear him talk about, well, some of these people are going past a line that could be illegal. Is he correct in that concern? He's talking about allies of the then President Trump and some of his even Republican colleagues.
He's absolutely correct in his assessment that it's possible that they're over the line. And Ari, I think you lay it out just right. As Americans, we have a First Amendment right to assemble and to speak. But at some point, if you're involved in inciting violence, you can cross that line. You can be part of a conspiracy, whether you're actually present or not, that's involved in that sort of criminal conduct. And so Representative Scalise is correct to have those concerns. It's a shame that the leadership of the Republican Party is not the leadership that we hear on those tapes, that rather the leadership are the leaders who emerged, who made apologies, who refused to vote for impeachment. It was leadership that was craven. The worst aspect of these tapes is that it's clear now, and I think it has been for some time, that the leadership of the Republican Party understood what the president had done, whether it was political crimes or whether it was actual crimes that people can be charged with under the criminal code. They knew that it was wrong. They knew that it was dangerous, but they were more interested in power and party than they were in country. They need to be held accountable now that we hear their own words acknowledging that. David?
Yeah, it is true they clearly knew, and we saw that in the handling of the first impeachment. Let's not let the second impeachment, let's not distract attention from one scandal by another enormous scandal. That Republicans also knew that it was wrong that Donald Trump blackmail the president of Ukraine, who's the now embattled president of Ukraine. They understood it then, and we saw that they tried to drive the delivery of arms that Donald Trump tried to stop in order to get a political advantage from. And this has been a story, I think, that people come on shows like this night after night for the past half dozen years to tell you, which is you close the door, you open the taps, you listen to the member of the House of the Senate, and they actually are as alarmed as anybody else, actually more alarmed because they spend more time with Donald Trump. They know more of what he's like. The more you know him, the more you fear him, the less you like him. And yet, their private selves, their true knowledge does not turn into public service. And that's just enormously depressing. That's, I think, one of the reasons why so many Republicans are trying to find a way to ramp up Ron DeSantis. It's a way to maybe solve this problem from their point of view, but it doesn't solve the problem from a national point of view.
Enormously depressing. David Frum, gifted with words, giving it to us straight, 8 minutes into the hour. You may make people want to just throw their hands up. But as you say, it's deeply depressing because there aren't more benign interpretations. And if you're an optimist, and that's part of the sort of traditional American spirit, you look for, well, improvement, or maybe they could learn. But it's worse when they knew and then backslid and got worse since the insurrection. I don't know if on Jan 10 or 15, this is what even the very skilled Washington insider types, people who really think they know these folks, would have seen coming. Our panel stays. I want to play something else, which is this was before the new audio drop, but new. Kevin McCarthy taking heat from another Republican about the lies. Here is House Freedom Caucus member Andy Biggs.
We have our leader that's basically negotiating with Liz Cheney on whether he should encourage President Trump to resign or not. Becomes a huge trust issue.
By trust issue, he means that his problem is that McCarthy was critical of Trump, not all the other ways, as we were just discussing, that this has got McCarthy in hot water. Meanwhile, here's Mitch McConnell asked about McCarthy today.
Leader McConnell, do you have any concerns over the fact that Kevin McCarthy so publicly lied about what he said right after the January 6th insurrection?
Well, I can tell you that I addressed that issue at length on 2 occasions on January 6th and again on February 13th.
Starting with David, that sounds like a deposition answer if I've ever heard one.
Well, it's also McConnell saying a little bit, I play this game better than McCarthy, and just watch these moves. And, lying is for amateurs. The really skilled person evades. That's sort of what McConnell is saying there. To Andy Biggs in the trust issue. that it really, he and others like him are digging in deeper and making the 22 ballot issue this preservation of American democracy. And the thing that is so mad about this, even from a Republican point of view, is, look, these elections, when the president's not on the ballot, are ask the American people, have you got any complaints? And the American people almost always say, well, come to think of it, yes, I do. And they vote against the president to register their complaints. The only way you get in the way of that vote that says, have you got any complaints, is to say, well, let me make this a referendum on Donald Trump, who remains one of the least popular figures in American life, one of the least popular presidents ever, and whom the Republicans themselves want out of the way, except they want him out of the way on the Homer Simpson principle, let somebody else do it.
A shout out to Homer. But he wasn't always the first person you wanted to trust with nuclear safety.